Assalamualaikum. Our group will present about Tallyworks Corporation Berhad. My name is Dini Najwa binti Zahir. First is company background. Tallyworks Corporation Berhad listed on the main market of Bursa Malaysia Securities Berhad under the utility sector. This company involved in four core business, which is water treatment, supply and distribution, highway toll operation and maintenance operator, waste management, and last is engineering and construction. Under liquidity ratio, we have current ratio. For Tallyworks Corporation Berhad, current ratio is lower than the industry average. For example, RM1 ringgit of current liabilities, the company only have RM0.51 of current asset as a backup, compared with the industry average, which is 1.97 times. A current ratio of less than 1 show that this company has problem meeting its short-term obligation. This is because the company has a higher proportion of debt due in the financial year than its proportion of asset that can be converted into cash within the financial year. According to the statement of financial position, the company is obligated to pay short-term borrowing amounting 40 million. To improve their current ratio, Tallyworks Corporation should manage their current liability well by settling all its short-term borrowing, because as long as the company has a lower finance to equity ratio and finance service cover ratio than the amount required, the short-term borrowing will remain in the current liability and become a burden to the company. Next is acid test ratio. Tallyworks Corporation Berhad has an acid test ratio less than 1 because their current assets are highly dependent on the current asset amounting 39,634,000 in 2019. Tallyworks Corporation Berhad acid test ratio is lower than the industry average. Current assets hold the highest proportion, while the amount of deposit, cash and bank balance of the company is only 6,142,000. An acid test ratio of less than 1 shows that this company may not be able to fully pay its current liability in the short term. To improve the acid test ratio, this company should generate more cash flow because cash is the most liquid current asset. One of the ways that the management of this company can do is by maintaining their budget of an unchanged target price. Next, we have leverage ratio. Under leverage ratio, we have a debt ratio. This company has a lower debt ratio compared to the industry average because this company has a low debt financing. It shows that this company has a greater creditworthiness and should not have difficulties to borrow money. In order to achieve a lower debt ratio, Tallyworks Corporation Berhad decreased their total debt. According to the statement of financial position, the company settled part of its amount due to long-term borrowing of 10 million and its short-term borrowing of 40 million. In the future financing period, this company should avoid taking more borrowing to maintain a low liability. Tallyworks Corporation Berhad debt to equity ratio is lower than the industry average. A low debt to equity ratio indicates a lower amount of financing by debt via lenders and funding through equity by a shareholder. The company used more proportion of equity financing through shareholder compared to debt financing through creditor. This company operation do not rely more on borrowing, which could lead to a greater risk of bankruptcy. This is because companies are obligated to pay minimum payment of loans even though they are not profited enough. Taliworks Corporation should increase their revenue. As the revenue increase, the company must reinvest the money by increasing asset or paying off debts. This will increase equity and hence keep the debt to equity ratio low. That's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter, which is Nur Fatin Amira.
Okay, my name is Nufatin Amira binti Hamiza. So I will explain for the time interest earned for this company. Time interest earned measure the company's ability to meet its debt obligation based on its current income. This company obtained 12.87 times, while the industry average is 12.06 times, which is a good result because the company get higher than the industry average. The company get a high amount of time interest earned than the industry average because they incurred a high profit during 2019 and also interest expense, which is average. A high number show that the company can afford to pay its interest payment when they come due. High ratio means it's less risky, while the lower ratio means it's more risky. So the company can maintain their time interest earned by control its debt repayment or its financial leverage in the most effective way to preserve the time interest earned rate. Next is gross profit margin, a ratio showing the efficiency of the revenue and output of the business. As you can see, the gross profit for this company is higher than the industry average, which is 70.7%. 70.7% ratio means that RM 0.70703 gross profit is made by the company for every 1 ringgit of revenue made. It means that the greater the gross profit margin, the better. A higher gross profit margin shows that the company make a reasonable sales profit, where the gross profit in 2019 is higher than 2018. They can maintain their gross profit margin in utilizing the sales by raising the prices and take cash discount from suppliers. Normally, even though the company is borrowing, it is far better deal than attempting to delay payment. Besides, if they are able to predict and prepare their inventory much more effectively, the company will reduce company waste. Next is operating profit margin. It is derived after deducting all costs and expenses, excluding interest, charge, and tax from the sales figure. So here, the company is making higher operating profit margin than the industry average. Therefore, a positive operating profit margin is good as the company is able to manage indirect costs very well. A higher operating margin is more favorable compared with a lower ratio because this shows that the company is making enough money from its ongoing operation to pay for its variable costs as well as fixed costs. They obtain a higher amount because they generated a negative amount of net cash in operating activities. Another reason is because there is an increase in sales. This allows investors to see if the company is generating income primarily from its core operation, such as investing. The company should minimize its supply and spend as little as possible in order to maintain their operating profit margin.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Ms. Adrin Sofia binti Rashid. Now we are moving to net profit margin. It is equal to how much the net income or profit is generated as a percentage of revenue. So here, for this financial year, Taliworks has obtained 0.61%, which is much more than industry average, negative 12.4. So the company has a good performance, which means they are efficient in converting their sales into the actual profit. Even though their performance is good, but still we can improve more. So first, we can improve by reduce the cost of their net profit so that the ratio can be improved. Second is to review the supplier choices and negotiate lower prices so that they can reduce the cost of supply. Next is return on assets. It will show the percentage of how profitable the assets of a business are when generating the revenue. So as we can see, TaliworksCorporationBhd5P has obtained 0.06%, which is lower than industry average 4.7%. So this bad performance is due to inefficiency in using their resources. So how to improve this ratio? First is to keep their assets cost down by monitoring their asset expenses monthly. Maybe TaliworksCorporationBhd Corporation can make a periodic schedule in machine inspection. Second is to reduce inventory costs by managing the levels of inventory to reflect the sales expectation. And last but not least is to increase their selling price. So when their selling price is increased and their cost of production is decreased, meaning to say they can improve their return on assets. For return on equity, it measures the profitability of a business in relation to the equity and how well the company uses investment to generate earnings growth. So, TaliWorks obtained 0.07%, which is lower than industry average 3.1%. This bad performance is indicates that the company is inefficient in generating their profit. It also means that it is not worth for the investors to invest in this company because they cannot make a good use of investors' money. So, to improve this ratio, first is to increase the prices of each product sold. Like I said before, we can increase the selling price. Second is to lower the cost of goods sold. And last but not least is to reduce its overhead expenses. For example, maybe TaliWorks can reduce their utility bills.
Okay, next for common size ratio, for property, plant and equipment, it is increased by 5.42% because the company issued the company acquired new property, plant and equipment. Next is right of use asset. It is only occurred in 2019. And next, investment properties, there is a decrease by negative 0.02% because the company acquired less investment. In investment in subsidiaries, there is also a decrease by negative 0.04% because the company acquired less investment. Okay, next, investment in joint venture and investment in associates. There is no changes in both investment because because this is due to no issuance in both investment. Next is deposit, cash and bank balance. It is also increased from 2018 to 2019. Okay, for non-current liabilities, long-term borrowing is increased by 23.15%. The reason is to reduce the amount of liabilities which can affect the company performance. For the lease liabilities, it is occurred only in 2019 because the company adopted new and amended standard and interpretation. This is because the lease liability is under the application of FRS 16, which is for the current year only. For the provision, it is only occurred in 2019. And then for total non-current liabilities, it is increased by 60.52%. This is because the company incurred this liability and provision in 2019 that caused the effect of non-current liabilities.
For conclusion, we conclude three things. First is the financial ratios are used in determining its financial health to summarize the details and the financial statements of the organization. Second is the organization may assess the efficiency of operations and the risk of operation through ratio analysis. And last but not least is the business will assess its success and study patterns with its own past financial statements by common size ratios.